Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar on the Google Geo Tools, Virtual Reality in the World Language Classroom by Heidi Trude. My name is Edwige Simon and I'm the Director of the Graduate Certificate in Language Teaching with Technology. The project that Heidi is going to present today is a project that she developed when she took a course called Tools in Practice in spring 2018. And I just wanted to say a few words about this program. The Graduate Certificate in Language Teaching with Technology is offered by the University of Colorado Boulder, and more specifically, the Division of Continuing Education. It is a 12 graduate credit program, and all the courses are fully online. So we're on the website of the program right now, and we offer courses in fall, spring, and summer. And we still have 3 courses that are open for registration. The second language acquisition course is now closed for registration, but you can still register for the digital games and language learning course that starts June 16th, or you can still sign up for the Language Technology Foundation course. The gaming course is an 8-week course dedicated to an exploration of the integration of digital games and gaming strategies in the world language classroom. It is a 2 graduate credit course. And the Language Technology Foundations course is a 10-week course. I'm teaching the Foundations course. And it is a requirement for students who are pursuing the certificate. The certificate is a very flexible program. You can take 1 course, 2 courses, or as many or as few as you want. If you want to obtain the graduate certificate in language teaching with technology, you have to complete 12 credits. And there are 2 required courses. The rest is entirely up to you. But the Foundations course that starts June 16th is a requirement. And then in July, we'll start a 4th course called Telecollaboration Inch for Language Learning. And it's a 1 credit course for teachers who want to work on their own language proficiency. And this course pairs you one-on-one with a language partner. So that's it for the courses that are open for registration this summer. I will publish the fall schedule shortly. In the meantime, I wanted to mention 2 more things. First, through the certificate program, I run a completely free, open to anybody book club. And we just finished this book by Deborah Blas called Differentiated Instruction, a Guide for World Language Teachers. And in a few weeks, we'll pick another book. And so if you're interested in just reading with us, it's very informal. Basically, we pick a book, we read a chapter per week or so, and then we have discussions on Facebook, and we also have discussions on a Twitter chat at the end of the book. And finally, another resource that I wanted to share with you, it's called the FLT Mag. The FLT Mag is a magazine of technology integration in language teaching and learning. And there is an issue in July, November here. And all the articles are written by language teachers, language educators, reviewing technologies, sharing ideas, sharing activities that they do in their classes. So you're welcome to read it. It's entirely free, and you're also welcome to submit articles if you want to share what you do with other language educators. Under About Submissions, you have submission guidelines. So that's it, and I'm going to let Heidi present her webinar on virtual reality in the world language classroom. Thank you. I'm very pleased today to have Heidi present a webinar. And the webinar that she's presenting on is something that she explored for her technology integration project for a course called Tools in Practice. It is a course that is offered every spring and every fall. And there are 2 instances of that course. The course that is offered in the fall is a course where we explore mainstream technologies, tools that you've all heard about and probably used. But the spring version of this course is a little bit different because we explore emerging technologies and tools that are a lot less common and a lot less mainstream. And so Heidi decided to explore virtual reality and the Google Geo Tools. And so today she's going to share with you what she found. The project is structured in such a way that over the course of 8 weeks, the students, so they pick a topic and every week they explore an aspect of their topic. And so the first week they do a general exploration. The second week they try to understand the technology behind their topic. And then the third week they get in touch with people who actually use these tools. And they conduct small interviews, and then the week after they explore small classroom applications. So it's a really thorough project, and Heidi has a really good grip on the Geo Tools because she is a Google certified teacher as well. So and an expert user of technology, I would say. And so today she's going to just share with you what she has found and what she's tried and what works and what doesn't. And yes, that's it for the introduction. Heidi, it's all yours.
All right, thanks, Edwige. So hi, everybody. I am Heidi Trude, and I'm going to give you guys my formal introduction slide in a minute. But again, this is going to be virtual reality in the world language classroom. And as you can see on my cover, that is me with Bradley Land, who is one of the first people who introduced me to the world of VR. And that was my first experience with a Google Cardboard viewer, and the look on my face pretty much says it all there. It is that amazing. If you haven't had a chance to try it, I think by the end of this webinar, you guys really will want to. So I will go ahead and go to slide 2. So again, I'm Heidi Trude. I'm a French teacher out in Virginia at Skyline High School, which if you're familiar with Virginia at all, we're about an hour west of Washington, D.C. in the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains. And I did graduate from the University of Colorado Boulder with the certificate in language teaching with technology, finished that up in December. And I'm also the 2018 SCOLT World Language Teacher of the Year, and I will be competing at ACTFL in November for the title of the ACTFL National Language Teacher of the Year. As Edwige mentioned, I am a Google Certified Educator, both Level 1 and Level 2, as well as a Google for Education Certified Trainer. I would encourage you all to please connect with me. I'm on Twitter, and I'm very active on Twitter. My handle is htrude07, so you can go ahead and follow me on there if you want to tweet out questions during the presentation, afterwards, that's fine. Or just share about the presentation on Twitter, that would be awesome. You can email me at heidi.trude@colorado.edu. And you can follow me on my blog, which mostly deals with language teaching and technology, and it's techietrude.blogspot.com. So that's the best ways to get in touch with me. And at any time, just ask me questions if you want to put them in the chat, and Edwige will show that to me later. Or you can, I've also created a back channel for us that I will show you guys in a minute. And the picture here, I was blessed to go to the Googleplex in Mountain View, California last summer, and got to have extensive training in the Google Geo Tools, and that was my first time seeing the Google car that they use for Street View, as well as playing with the Google bikes. So to follow along on the presentation, and so you guys can have all the resources that I'm sharing today, I created a bit.ly link for us, and our URL is bit.ly/V_R_IN WL Classroom, and it is case sensitive. So it is VR in WL Classroom, and that is case sensitive. That'll lead you to all of today's resources without a problem. Now, as well, I've also made us a Padlet for today's session, and on the Padlet, and I'll go ahead and link to it right now for us. So on the Padlet, this can be a back channel for you all, as well as just, I'm going to keep this open. So you can use it to post questions you guys have. And again, if you've never used Padlet, all you have to do is hit the plus sign. And then you can post your comment or question. So I put what questions you have about virtual reality, thinking about how you use it if you're already using it, how do you use it in your classroom. If you have ideas, maybe besides what I've come up with, please feel free to share those on the Padlet. And then I've also created a column for our resources, and I've put a few of my favorite up there already, from Michael Fricano, Casey Bell, and again, a database that's searchable of all the Google expeditions, which is pretty awesome, and the Google VR Tour Creator. Again, if you're just joining, if you can please mute yourselves, that way we don't get any feedback as well. So again, just a general reminder, please mute your microphones. Thanks.
Heidi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you reshare that link?
Yes, I will go right back to it, Edwige. Bam. VR in the world in WL Classroom. And then for the Padlet, it's Padlet/HTrude1/VR in WL. And I'll put those links up again at the end of the presentation. All right, are we okay to go on, guys? All right, let's jump right in. So our objectives for today. Our objective number one is, so we first off get an understanding of what is virtual reality. We also want to focus on understanding how virtual reality works in combination with the Google Geo Tools. And also we're going to focus on sharing ways that we can use virtual reality in the world language classroom. And again, at the end, I'll take any questions that you guys have. So to start off, our first topic is, what is virtual reality? And I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, heard about it, but just what exactly is virtual reality? And that was kind of my starting question for my technology integration project, was to think about first understanding what is VR and how in the world can I relate this to my world language classroom. So basically, virtual reality occurs when we are immersing ourselves in some kind of digital content. If you guys want to think about it, the example I used in my technology integration paper was when you were a child, or at least when I was a child, I was given a ViewMaster to play with, where you had the little disc and it had different pictures, and I would click the button and I would be transported to somewhere else. And I would just see a still picture of it. Now, VR with Google Cardboard is pretty much that same experience, but now it's in 360 and I am totally transported to another place. I simply put in my phone into the viewer, and now I am in another world, surrounded me completely. Whereas back in the day, when I was using my cute little VR ViewMaster, not VR, but using my ViewMaster, I would just see this still picture that would show me maybe some animals. It would show me scenes from around the world, and I'd be like, that's cool, but you didn't feel like you were there. So having the VR experience is really that immersive experience. And when you guys have access to it, almost every image within my presentation is hyperlinked to more resources about what each item is and to give you further explanation. So some of you have probably heard that there's VR, which is virtual reality. You have something called AR, which some of you might be using in your classrooms. And then we have something that is called mixed reality, or MR. And all three are totally separate entities. So as I've said, virtual reality is going to be when you're in a fully artificial environment. It's where you're fully immersed in that virtual environment with your headset, etc., completely immersed in either whether it's videos, the place you're exploring, etc. Augmented reality is where you're going to have your virtual objects are going to be overlaid on a real world environment. So that could be something as simple as a QR code, where your students take their phones, they scan the code that's going to lead them to something else. Mixed reality is a combination of both the virtual environment and the real world. So you get that interaction with both real world and the virtual environment. But today we're just going to deal with virtual reality. Even though Google just announced recently they now have expeditions that work with AR as well. I have not played with those yet, but I'm really excited to look at it. We are, again, just focusing on virtual reality. So how in the world did Google Cardboard and all this all begin? Well, it starts with two Google engineers who are in Paris. So we have David Cause and Damien Henry. And these were both Google engineers working for Google, and this all happened during a project. Google gives their employees what is called 20% time, or some of us might refer to that as Genius Hour. So at Google, Googlers are given 1 day a week, in other words, 20% of their time, to work on a new innovation. So both David and Damien had this idea of, why don't we create some kind of viewer for virtual reality? What would that look like, and what could that be? So this is in 2014. In 2014, they launched this idea at one of Google's conferences. So they launch it, and everyone kind of thinks, okay, this is really new, this is cutting edge. And fast forward to 2015, 1 year later, now not only do we have Google Cardboards, but we also have pretty much viewers are starting to appear around the world. You have the launch of Google Expeditions as a pioneer program. And really, this is where Google really got into it in the education realm of what are the possibilities within virtual reality. And all of that came from two gentlemen's ideas of 20% time, just imagining a possibility of what could this be like. And since then, it's skyrocketed with all these possibilities, expeditions, and even just a few weeks ago, Google also launched the new tour creator, which I will talk about at the end of the presentation, which is really, really awesome. And I'm excited to share that one with you guys too. So that's a little bit of the start of how Google got into the Google Cardboard and exactly what VR is. And I'm not going to play it for you now, but on your own time, this is just a video that I really like that really shows you guys what it would be like and kind of Google Expeditions and why it is what it is. And kind of just even thinking how you can be transported. It's basically taking you to places you never thought were possible, or for students who just don't have the means to go there. This experience with virtual reality through Google Cardboard and Google Expeditions gives students a chance. It promotes that equity and access to all of our students, giving them that chance that we know some of our students might not be able to afford to travel abroad with us. They just don't have the means, or they're unable because of an illness, etc. But through a simple app on our phones and a simple $5 to $10 viewer, we can give our students those experiences. So when you have time, I suggest watching this video because it really shows you how you can take your kids pretty much anywhere. So we're going to look at how exactly does virtual reality work. And I'm assuming some of you guys have used this, some of you haven't. So for some of you, this might be a refresher. For others, this might be totally new to you all. So how does it work? First thing you need, obviously, is you have a lot of options. So there are many different kinds of headsets you can buy. You can go really expensive with your Oculus Rifts, or you can go, Viewmaster actually makes a headset now. I have one of those, which it was about $30. It might even be cheaper now, but my phone actually fits in it and it's a little more protected, so it's not going to fall out as easy. You can find them on Amazon with the plastic ones that are around $10. You can get the cardboard version, which is what I have actually in my classroom, is we have the actual cardboards because I was able to receive a grant for those. But depending on your need and what you're using it for, there are different headsets with varying cost. Obviously, as teachers, we always look at cost, and that can be a factor. So I'm fine working within the $10 to $15 range, and those work just fine for my purposes. So you need your headset to start, and then with your headset, the purpose of having the cardboard is that it's going to allow you to experience your virtual reality. So besides your cardboard, the next big cost you need is your device. So a smartphone or an iPod Touch, and then you insert that into your cardboard. Larger phones are going to work best. And make sure it's an iPhone. If it is an iPhone, it must be a 5 or higher. And now, obviously, the bigger the phone is, the harder it is to fit in there. So for my students, some of them who have the larger phones, I actually tell them it's better if they take off their case, because sometimes we've had trouble where if you have your case on your phone, it doesn't fit into the viewer as well. With the ones that I have, they are similar to these cardboard models, but mine also have rubber bands that help secure their phones into place, which works really well. So if your students all don't have devices, again, that is another cost. And I'm actually, you can buy a whole kit, and I do have the link for that within my presentation, where you can go and buy a Google Expeditions kit, which includes your devices, the cardboard viewers, the tablet for the teacher, etc. But those are pricey for a class set. It's close to $10,000. So you probably want to look at a grant for that, or have several teachers in your division write it up as a grant. So maybe they'll fund it if there's more teachers who are asking for it. But again, we'll talk about that later on. So just for the basic cardboard, Viewer itself is inexpensive. It's just getting your device, which is a little costly unless you're lucky and all your students have devices. So the first tool we're going to look at with how it works is not actually a geo tool, but it could possibly link. It's one of the ones that's really neat. It's one that if you're on summer break now, this is one you might just want to play with if you get yourself a cardboard viewer. So the first one is YouTube 360. And again, I have included the link to YouTube has a whole playlist of 360 videos. So what happens is when you go on your phone on the YouTube app and you go to the YouTube 360 channel, there are all these videos that are done in 360. You just put your phone right into your viewer, and then your phone will recognize your viewer, and you will actually be watching those videos in 360 with the sound, etc. We've actually done this in my classroom with my phone, like during the last few days of school when there wasn't as many students around and they're pretty much in summer mode. I was like, hey, do you guys want to do some virtual tours or watch some 360 videos around Paris? They're like, what, we can do that? I'm like, yeah. So they put on their YouTube app on their phone, they put in the cardboard viewers, and they were watching 360 tours, 360 videos. They liked the one, especially the catacombs, because it took them down in there and it was kind of creepy and twisty and dark. Some of them that are also really fun that aren't foreign language related, you can ride on roller coasters and see what that's like. You can dive underwater. There's even some scary movies that have been made with 360 effects. So there is tons of options available that you can find. And not even, I mean, relating to any aspect of language teaching, you can look a lot of cultural things you can find on the 360 channel, as well as AP themes are also there. So you just have to look for it, do a little bit of digging, but you can find those videos there, and that's a really cool way to immerse your students in the language and in the culture. The next one that I want to hit is a geo tool, and this is Google Expeditions. And this is probably one of the coolest things Google has launched in terms of their geo tools. So this is Google Expeditions. It basically is going to allow you to bring field trips right into your classroom. If you guys remember the show, The Magic School Bus, you kind of can become Mrs. Frizzle. You're now going to take your students with the power of their cardboard viewers and their phones. You now take your students, whether you're going to Paris, you could take them to Africa, you can take them into the ocean, into space. Pretty much you can take them wherever there is an expedition available. My kids love it when we go on top of the Eiffel Tower. And the best thing, the beauty of expeditions, they're already created for you. So again, I've linked to this slide, I have linked the resources to expeditions as well as a video that explains them. But we're going to go through step by step of what you are to do if you were to lead a Google expedition. So again, this is just Google's announcement video. And again, you can watch this one on your own time, but I included it because this was what they used to launch expeditions. And again, pretty much you can take students anywhere you can think of, and they keep adding more and more expeditions. So what exactly is it? It consists of 3 parts. You have your content, which is created already within the app, and a lot of it is even is already done. It's done for you. Some of it is even done by done by textbook companies, and others Google hires out. Some is done on the Google team themselves, but all the content is curated there, as well as your script and your questions. And the nice thing about the questions in expeditions, they're differentiated by levels. So if you have advanced learners, you could go to the advanced questions. If you have students who are younger, maybe you're teaching in the elementary level, there are questions for those students as well. So you have those varied levels that you can ask. Then you need the app, and the students would need the app on their device as well. And then you need your hardware. You as the teacher will need one, as well as all your students. And what I recommend for the teacher, you could run it through your own cell phone. However, on the teacher side, it's a lot easier if you have a tablet to look at, because it gives you a bigger screen so you can see where all your kids are. Do you know that Johnny has ventured off and he's nowhere near where you're talking about. And I'll show you what that looks like in a couple of minutes so you can see where your students would be on the screen and what they look like. So it's recommended that you use a tablet as the guide, but a phone will work. It's just that smaller screen and it's a little harder to see where everybody's at. So device options, and again, this is what was recommended best by others, and in my research, they recommended Androids. And it does work though on the iPhone as well. You need to have a gyroscope and 1 gig RAM. For teachers, they do again recommend the tablet, and there's more recommendations. Michael Fricano, who's out in Hawaii, who is pretty much an expert on all things VR, I've linked his recommendations, and he keeps updating everything on what works, what doesn't. If you have a certain device and it doesn't seem to work for you, he has troubleshooting tips and everything all on his website. So again, that's a great site and a great resource. So once you lead an expedition, you have your options. So I did some screenshots here. So this is what it would look like on the app over here on the right-hand side. So you can choose, are you going to be a guide? That means you're the teacher role. You're going to lead your explorers through the expedition, or you can choose to be an explorer and you're going to follow the guide on the expedition that the guide chooses. So you could do this both ways. You could actually, and I haven't tried it yet, but it's something I want to try this upcoming next school year, is I want to actually have some of my students be the guide and not the explorers. But previously I've been the guide, and I am using the script that's there. And actually, there's not that many scripts right now in target language. So I usually, for my upper levels, I do look at them ahead of time. And as I'm going through it, I'm putting it into target language for the students. For my lower levels, I will do it in English just because some of the grammar and vocab is not as familiar to them yet when it's culture. So I mean, you could do it that way. You could also, when we'll talk about it later on, have your students create their own tours using the new feature of Tour Creator, which would then be leading an expedition. So we'll get to that. So first option again is choose your role, whether you're a guide or an explorer. And then you're going to decide where you're going to go. Where are you going to explore? So you as the teacher would use your device and you'll decide what you want to explore. So it would look similar to this on your screen. You would be choosing, you could search, and you could search for something specific. You can look for arts and culture, landscape, science, etc. Or you can just use your little magnifying glass, and if you know that you want to explore Madrid, Spain, for example, you could put in Madrid, Spain, and they would show you if there were any expeditions available there, and you could scroll down, look through them, and decide, okay, this is what we're going to do. You then download that expedition, and then you ask your students to join you. So again, obviously take some time beforehand looking through to see what you want to use. And again, I've linked it in the Padlet as well as in the presentation, our whole searchable database as well. So if you wouldn't want to be looking on your app for all these at first, there is a link with the searchable database that has every expedition available. So that's a really good resource to have. It's one I have bookmarked on my computer. Again, mute yourselves.
Heidi?
Yeah?
I just want to take a minute to ask a question that appeared in the chat. And I'm sure there's an
Yes.
Let me mute a couple people here. And I think you will address the issue of having to be on the same IP address, right? Later on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Coming up.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. So again, you're choosing your option, choosing where you're going to go. And then within each one, so on this slide, you guys can see, and I've put it up here, this is just one of places around the world. And each destination that you choose, there's going to be multiple sites. So it almost looks like at first, it's like a Google Slides kind of thing that you're seeing. But then when you're ready to go, you hit your play button, and that's going to get you started. And if you guys can see on this, it's not very clear in here, but I was just taking some random screenshots doing these. You can see there are 0 people there. That means I have no explorers with me. because I was just doing these at home, grabbing some random shots. So I would have some to put in here for you all. All right, so what I would see as the leader, I'm going to see a screen that has my script. So on my tablet or my phone, I have this script, and it would tell me what I say to my students as I'm reading through it. And then what they're seeing is over on the right-hand side. They would be looking through their viewer, looking around, and hopefully I'm making it move for you guys so you can kind of see with my images, it moves a little bit so I can point, and they would see what I'm asking them to look at. And again, I know the question did come up in the chat. You do need a router where everybody is on the same address. So the problem that I'm having right now in my school is getting them to allow me to use a router, a separate router from our school Wi-Fi in my classroom. It's something we've been dealing with my techs with for a while, and they think it's actually going to become more of a possibility for this coming year. What I've done to get around it for this year is I would make a hotspot using my phone. Not the best way to get around it, but it was one quick fix that I could do to get everybody around it, so all the kids were on my hotspot on my phone to get us through a couple of them. But ideally, you want to have your own router and have everyone on that one network is how that needs to work. Okay. Again, I hear people who are on, please mute yourselves so we don't get the feedback. All right. So what it looks like as you, the leader, and this one was on beating Ebola in Sierra Leone, and you have several options. You can, if there's video sound that goes with your expedition, you have the option to turn it on or off. So if you want the students to actually hear the different sounds, you might want to go through the expedition yourself first and see what it's like, and then you can decide, okay, do I want them to hear it or not? And then where you have the people, that's how many explorers you have, and you can also see where they are looking. So I would be reading about the makeshift shacks, and I would tell the students what it says, etc. And then I would see, when I click this next slide, I would see what it would look like. So this is where all my kids are. This is what it looks like on the tablet. You can see they're all kind of in an area. No one's really off to the wrong space, but anywhere there's a happy face is where your students are, and we know, yay, happy faces equal happy explorers. So that's pretty much what it looks like on my side of it. Do we have any questions? I'll pause, make sure we're all okay.
I'm monitoring the chat.
All good so far?
Yeah, so far so good. Actually, Sylvie has a question. She asked whether she can create her own 360 videos with her phone.
Yes, and we're getting there.
Okay.
Yes, so yes, Sylvie, you can create your own 360 videos that your students could watch. You could do it, the best way I would do it now is with the new tour creator that they've just launched. It's still in beta. Some school divisions have it. Some do not have access to it yet. If you're a Google for Education school, you may have access to it. If your county and division is an early adopter, you're going to have access to Google Tour Creator. My division is not an early adopter, so we don't have the access to it. I can see what it looks like from the outside. I just can't get in and actually start playing with it yet. But that's a really cool option coming up that Google's created. But you could do your own, and I have done my own 360 videos. You can take it right with your phone, and I did not put a slide in there that tells you how to do that. But you could use the simple one that I use. You can use Google Street View for your photos, which I do have. There we go. I do have a Street View slide. So Street View is actually an easy way to do your 360 photos because there's a lot of them already done for you. Or you can take your own and actually have them uploaded into Street View. And then when anybody searches for photos of a certain place, wherever you want to go, say you want to go to Normandy since today is D-Day, maybe you wanted to show your students the D-Day beaches, what it looked like. You could go into Street View, you could search a place, And then you would easily find all these images that come up that are 360 images of the D-Day beaches. And then all you would do is pop your phone into your Google Cardboard viewer, and your students would be transported to the Normandy beaches. So again, that's Google Street View, and it is an app. And what it looks like, I have the little logo up here on the slide, so you see what the little logo looks like. You want to download that app. It's totally free. So you can do this. This is a great way to view 360 photos. I take them all the time with my phone. I also have a Ricoh 360 camera, a Ricoh Theta, which I also love because there was a huge sale on them last summer. So all of us who went to CAGTI, which was our Google training at the Googleplex, we all were buying Ricoh Thetas because the airports had them all on sale, like for half price. So pretty much all of us bought one. It's super fun to play with, but you can use on your phone as well. So I use Street View, the Street View app. I also have another favorite app, and I'm going to tell you the name of it right now. Other one I love to use is Cardboard Camera. That one's also a free one. The why I like Cardboard Camera, it's a little different than Street View. In Cardboard Camera, it also records the sounds. So if you really want to give your students that immersive experience, use Cardboard Camera. It's a free app, and it's going to record the sounds. I did some when I was in France in the spring, and I recorded some just so the kids would not only see what I was seeing, but they felt immersed in it when I came back because they were hearing the same things that I saw when I was there. So it really gives you that total immersion element. But back to Street View. So again, if you're using it on your phone, you would just open up the app. You can search using the magnifying glass. You just type in where you're looking, and again, scroll around, and then tap on, once you pick your picture that you want, select that image. Once you open the image, you're going to see what looks like the little cardboard icon. You can tap that icon, pop your phone into your viewer, and then you're going to see that picture. So this is really good if you're studying or you have a cultural unit in your book or you're just talking about it. I like to use it when I'm preparing my students for travel abroad trips to be like, hey, we're going to experience this place. Let's look at it now to give you guys kind of an idea. And what I'm actually doing, I leave on a trip next Friday. My students are going to use, or I'll let them use my phone if they don't have the apps downloaded, but we're going to actually take 360 videos during our trip with Cardboard Camera and Street View. And then when we get back, we'll have kind of like a we're back from France party. And the parents will also get to use the cardboard viewers and see all the pictures and experience everything that their students experienced while on tour. So that's just a cool idea I had.
Heidi, there's one question from Sarah. She says that there are two apps. There's the Cardboard Camera and there's the Google Cardboard app.
Okay, so the Google Cardboard app is basically an introduction to Google Cardboard. It has some little activities. It has some basics in it. So you want to have the Cardboard app, yes, to use Cardboard, but to use the actual camera, you want Cardboard Camera. And basically, it's a 360 camera for your phone. Everybody good?
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so Street View is one of mine that I really like to play with because it really does let you go anywhere, and the kids, like I've had my students, I'll be like, okay, name a place. I'm sure we can find it on there. And we pretty much will find pictures. They find it really cool when they find one of mine on there. I did another one that was really cool when I went to Washington, since I'm only an hour from Washington, D.C. I was up there touring around, and my grandfather is a World War II veteran, and he's 92, so it's obviously very hard for him to get around now. So I did one of when I went to the World War II Memorial and Monument and did a 360 there. And then I brought my cardboard viewer up to his house in Pennsylvania and put my phone in it. And I was like, here, Grandpa, I'm going to show you what the World War II Memorial is like, because I know you're not able to get there. But I wanted him to be able to experience it. And that was just a magical moment to see him be able to see it and experience it. Like, to give someone like that, and just to be able to give that opportunity to our students, It's a real life-changing moment when they actually get to experience it and you hear the stories and the meaning behind the places. So I think if you guys think a little bit, you'll be able to find and create those experiences for your students as well. So that was kind of an overview of some of the technologies that you can use with it, and I could talk forever about all the geo tools and what you can do with them, but I know Edwige told me to try to stay within an hour, which is hard because I'm really passionate about this, but that was a real quick overview. So why do we want to shift to VR? Like, why should we be using VR in our classrooms? Why is there a shift in education now going towards VR? So basically, this is from Sylvia Duckworth, who is amazing, and I love her sketch notes. And one day I hope to meet her in person, but that's a sidebar. But basically, the top 10 reasons of why you should be using VR is obviously, like we've been saying, so we can travel and explore places without having to leave our classroom. And I don't know what it's like for you all, but in my district, just trying to organize field trips can be a real hassle. And just the expenses of them when you think about buses, cost, etc., permission forms, and even just safety. So I mean, VR is now giving us that chance that we can do these things within our classroom. We could allow our students to see some different careers even by doing VR, look at something through that. You could time travel. You could also allow students to share the world with others by creating their own VR content, and I'm going to talk about ways that we can create with VR coming up. You could explore how it could be integrated into other subject areas and curriculum. Definitely, if you were in school today, an awesome one would be doing D-Day, doing something with the Normandy beaches, tying it to history. That would work perfectly and be a beautiful cross-curricular lesson. Also helps them develop empathy for communities in crisis by allowing them to step into their shoes. This works great so they can see what it's like maybe in a third world country, what they're going through. You could also explore the ocean, in space, the human body. I've saw when doing my research, there were these really cool videos out there that showed how doctors actually figured out a surgery procedure with a little boy and his heart by using VR to figure it out. It can also be used in other industries, and the biggest reason of all that we want to use VR in our classrooms is to promote curiosity and wonder, to really let our students ask those questions and wonder what it really is like, and just promoting that love of lifelong learning and being global citizens. So as part of the project, we had to reach out to educators who were using whatever tool we chose. So mine was VR. So I decided to reach out through Flipgrid, and I made this board in Flipgrid, and I have linked it there so you have time and you can go through on your own. And if you want to add your own ideas on the Flipgrid, it will stay active forever, so you're welcome to add it on. But I asked them to introduce themselves, tell me how to use virtual reality in their classroom, or if you're not using it, how might you use it? What is the student reaction, challenges to integrating it into the classroom, advantages of using virtual reality, and what they imagine the future of VR to be. And the results I got were overwhelming. Like, people who are like Michael Furcano, who is just such a leader in the ed tech field, reached out and responded. Sarah Thomas, who, for those of you who know the EduMatch movement, the creator of EduMatch, reached out and shared on there. Sandra Chow, who's big into the ed tech team, reached out and shared her thoughts. It was just getting all these educators reaching out on Flipgrid, as well as I also created a Google form where I was reaching out to educators, doing email interviews, all these people that reached out to me. And then they're like, well, we'll send you. A couple of people sent me books that they were writing, and I got to talk with several authors. Jamie Donnelly, who just wrote the newly released book, Learning Transported, talking all about augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. I got to spend time when I actually got to work with these two wonderful ladies at the Google Geo Institute last summer, but both Kelly Kermode and Kim Randall have published this brand new book all on bringing the world into your classroom using the Google Geo Tools. If you're into using Google Geo Tools, this book is fabulous and it's chocked full of resources. Highly recommend it. But just getting to talk to all these people and realize how powerful VR is, and the effects it has on the students was really amazing for me. Like, basically, the students love it, was the overall consensus, is they love it. It's just being able to take our students places we couldn't. People mentioned the fact that not only do the students enjoy consuming it, but now they want to create it. So that was the overall trend of where is VR going. It's the shift from going from a consumer to a creator is where we're leading with VR. So that was just a little summary of that. So obviously the state of VR in education, as we all know, our times are changing. We're leaving behind our old ways and we're shifting to more newer ways, more innovative ways, more 21st century learning. So obviously there are changes ahead. I mean, before we would have field trips where we could go places, we would hop on the yellow school buses and we would go to the museums. We would go to places like Monticello, etc., very easily by bus. But imagining going somewhere like Pearl Harbor and you're here in Virginia, how are you going to go there? It's pretty hard. But now with Google Expeditions, it's a matter of taking out your Google Cardboard, putting your device in, and you can basically be anywhere for a field trip. So that's a big advantage for us as language educators as well. As we know, taking our students abroad hits a lot of time. It's a lot of money on the students. And it's awesome that we can do that for those students who are able, but for students who are not, having that chance to be like, hey, today we're going to go exploring. How about we explore the catacombs of Paris? What do you guys think? What would that be like? And I mean, the response is amazing with the students. So I mean, now we have our students getting to explore the world. We have virtual field trips. And 90% of the information sent to the brain is visual, and 93% of all human communication is visual, so it's getting them to see that, to learn and see the world. Whether they're physically there or not, they're still seeing it, they're hearing what we're saying, and we're making that connection and broadening their horizons. Basically, we're putting, yeah, go ahead, Advish.
Can you talk a little bit about, do you do exercises around using the target language when doing expeditions?
With expeditions, I have done both. With only, I use target language more with my upper levels because sometimes it is a little challenging when I'm trying to be on the device, monitoring all of them. I'm more or less having to translate on the fly because as of right now, at least for French, there is very few expeditions done in target language on the actual expeditions. I have not researched what is available for Spanish. There might be more, but it's somewhat of a challenge to do it all the time in target language. Now, I will create my own follow-up questions in addition to what's on the expedition site. I create my own that meets the kids at the level they're at, and we'll just ask them, what did you see? And the kids can describe, usually in basic, if it's with level 1, I could ask them and they'll probably tell me, I saw a building, or I could ask them, where were we? We were in Paris. And they can answer that within target language. So yes, my follow-up questioning is target language, but sometimes I will run them, depending again on the level and what we're talking about. Sometimes they are run in English. Other questions?
Thank you. I mean,
no problem.
I think there are good opportunities to do wraparound activities.
Absolutely. Like the wraparound within the target, and that's what we're going to talk about coming up in a couple of slides, is ways you can use these in your classroom and some wraparounds that I've created with them. So basically, back to the slide we're on, is that basically we're putting the learning in the students' hands. And these were some of the viewers that I was talking about, some of the ones that are the plastic, the harder plastic. You can get these VR Pros on Amazon. They're about $10. They're not bad at all. And they come with the nice little head straps. So that's another option if you want something a little more durable than cardboard, even though mine have lasted so far. They're holding up, but if you have kids that you know aren't going to be as careful, or you're going to be using them a lot, which I also don't recommend that you use them a lot, because for some students and some adults, you do get dizzy and nauseous after wearing them for a while. I know for myself, I can only stand it for just a little bit of time before I'm feeling like I'm going to throw up, and also my issue is I have to take my glasses off to use them. So it's kind of a learning curve of where you have to adjust So it's not something that you want to do every Friday. We're using Google Cardboard. It's probably not a good idea. It's kind of a novelty, so I would not use it all the time. So that leads us to some ideas for using virtual reality in the world language classroom. And as part of the project, I had to come up with several ideas of how you could incorporate this into the world language classroom. And there was not an actual lot of research available on specifically using VR in the world language classroom. So I kind of had to dig a little deeper and be a little more creative in how this could work in the actual classroom. So I just kind of put 5, and for the project I only had to list 4 ideas, but I added a 5th one. So obviously the first one would be doing our virtual field trips with Google Expeditions. Again, I link to Expeditions here. So you could just go through and search as well. I put the database, and you could search the database. Like if you know that you're a Spanish teacher and you all look at Machu Picchu, I'm positive there is an expedition on Machu Picchu. You could just go in, look in the database, find the one you want, and then decide, okay, do I want to run it in target language when I do the expedition? Meaning you yourself are probably going to have to do all that translating on the fly. Or do you want to give it to the students in English and then create your wraparound activities in the target language where the students would be answering questions about what they saw, etc. So virtual field trips would obviously be your number 1 choice, and the one that I suggested in my project was doing a virtual tour of Paris. And in that one, basically my wraparound was the students would be describing what they are going to do if they were in Paris with it. Now the next one is a really cool tool. It involves your Google Cardboard and Story Spheres, and I also have linked later on in the presentation a whole other presentation that was done by another Googler and EdTech team member, Jessica Lux, and it's all about using Story Spheres, which basically Story Spheres allows you to take your 360 photographs, and then it also allows you to record your voice in those photographs, so you kind of like almost like building digital storytelling, but doing 360 digital storytelling that you then view with your Google Cardboard viewer. So the students would create their stories, record it as a 360 video, and then once it's done, they would then share it out, and then they would put on their Google, take their links, access it through the Google Cardboard viewers, and then they would be able to be immersed in these 360 video stories, which I thought would be, I have not tried this one yet in my classroom. It's one that I want to work on some more this summer, get out all the kinks, and then try this with my students next semester, because that would be a really neat, from thinking they could pretty much describe almost any, create any kind of story with us to really present themselves, and I think it's going to be a really cool one. Then using Google Street View as a scavenger hunt. So this is one that I was thinking similar to a breakout, so similar to Breakout EDU, but you would have a Google form that would give the students a clue, and you would direct them to an image, tell them, okay, I want you to find, okay, the Eiffel Tower in Street View using your viewer, and then they would be searching for something specific within your Google form as their answer. They would need to type that in. If they find what you've hinted that you need them to look for, it would then unlock using data validation on Google Forms and send them the next clue and the next image, and they would search for that on their phone, view it in their viewer, and then they would keep going. So kind of think like Amazing Race style activity using Google Street View. The next one, we actually almost did part of this one at the end of this year. We just did a different variation on it. We did town tours with our partner school, but we didn't get to do them with Street View because not all of my students had the technology that we needed. So I have a partner school in France, and my idea is so my students can better understand our town and Charleville-Mézières, which is in France, to better understand it, if we could do Street View photos, either use your cardboard camera app or use the Street View photo taker, and you would take your photos, and then we would view them with our devices through Google Hangouts. So my kids would be looking at their images if we're doing it live, or if we do it with cardboard camera, they could record it and be like, this is town hall, and explain what town hall is. Or my kids might be like, this is the Shenandoah River. It's located behind our school, and kind of give each other that virtual tour of their town, which is, for the kids, it would be a really neat experience because most of them have not experienced, the students in France have not been to the United States. My students, some of them have not been to France, so it would really be a good way to introduce our partnership to each other at the beginning of the school year. I mean, if you don't have a partner school, you could even have your students pick like different neighborhoods to do or whatever, but to do like town tours through Street View would be a really, really neat way. Or maybe even have them, it would be hard to do it with your different regions unless you're traveling there, but maybe if you're on a student trip, you could take the pictures and then have those students curate those images later on to do as your own kind of tour. And then the last one is very new. It was just recently launched. I'm actually going to click the link and hopefully it'll take us there. All right, looks like we're actually going good. But this is Tour Creator, and I can't get into it yet because I'm still in, like, it hasn't been released to us. But this is where you can actually build your own 360 tours right from your own computer. So this is something you all definitely want to check out because it's kind of like building your own Google Expedition. So if you want it in target language, this is how you could get it in there. But I'll see. Maybe we're going to get lucky. I'll give it a try. Hopefully it's going to work. Okay, let's see. I'll verify if it's, and we're going to hope it works. All right, let's see. All right, we still do not have access to it yet. I'm really sorry about that, guys, but some of you might be early adapters and you might actually have that access. So if you do, you can get on there and you can actually play with it. But for me, I still don't have access. It'll probably happen later this summer. But that's going to be a really neat option for you to go in and build your own 360 tours. I know that was something that Sylvie had asked about earlier. Sylvie, this is the one you want to look at and see if it's been opened up for your network yet. But those are just some ideas. There are so many ways that you can use VR and use the Google Geo Tools. Like, probably you could have your students start with your just using Street View to make the 360 camera pictures. Now, Street View, it is a little, you do look a little strange when you're using the Street View to take your pictures. I didn't realize how strange you looked taking them until one of my friends took a picture of me taking a 360 with Street View. Because you're going to be shooting your camera at these little orange dots that appear on your camera screen, like on your phone screen. Everywhere an orange dot appears, you're literally just moving your phone around and getting these dots. And then the peg man appears on your screen. He kind of melds your image all together. And then you get this 360 image. So if you're not as steady with your hand on it, sometimes you don't exactly get people's bodies matching up. It can look, some of mine have looked really interesting. But if you're doing it with, on the other hand, if you use the cardboard camera app with it, and you use cardboard camera, it's basically like shooting a pano picture, like a panoramic. And then it converts it to the 360 once you stick it inside of your viewer and captures the sound. So I find cardboard camera a lot easier to use, and for the students to handle, the cardboard camera app is much simpler than trying to shoot at all the orange dots and standing there for several minutes while your group is waiting for you. So my recommendation would be to use cardboard camera for your 360s unless you want to spend a lot of money and get a Ricoh Theta, which they're not as bad now, but if you don't want to spend that money, cardboard camera is totally the way to go. So I put together some resources for you guys from different websites that are just awesome. So one of them I included is Shake Up Learning, and this is from Casey Bell, who is absolutely wonderful and down in Texas. And then Kathy Schrock has a lot of VR resources on there as well. And EdTechnocation, which is Michael Fricano's site, he literally has an entire page dedicated to virtual reality with top picks for viewers, things that are new and emerging in VR. His is just a great one to follow. And then another awesome site is Class Tech Tips. And they're also on Twitter at Class Tech Tips. And if you're searching for VR information on Twitter, a really good hashtag to follow, and I didn't put it in here, but it's just called ARVRIN EDU. So ARVR in EDU is a really good one. It's a good hashtag on Twitter to follow.
Padlet, Heidi?
What?
Will you put this on the Padlet?
Yes, I will put it on the Padlet. Like all these links or the Twitter hashtag, Edwige.
Merci.
De rien. All right, so those are some, and I will make sure those get on Padlet for you all as well. A couple of them I put on there already. And then if you're looking for some lesson ideas, not all of these were lessons for the actual foreign language classroom, but we are all very creative educators in world language. So we can always see what other subject areas are doing and adapt it to our classrooms, which is kind of what I ended up doing when I came up with my ideas. So these are just 10 uses for VR. And then TES has a lot of different ideas, and they also have some pre-made lesson plans for VR. Some of these do relate to foreign language, so you can grab those as well, and I will put this on the Padlet as well. And then Class Tech Tips, again, has more ideas for using Google Cardboard in your classroom. And then if you're looking specifically for expedition resources, these are not just images here. Each one of them I have hyperlinked. So this one down with the map actually shows you where expeditions are available throughout the world. So everywhere there's map pins on there is where you have expeditions. And obviously they're more than just those little map pins. They're everywhere. But again, I have it linked to the expedition's actual site and also linking it to the expedition database as well. I'll make sure the expedition database I already added onto the Padlet as well for you guys. And finally, this one, the realm of creating with VR. Of course, like we talked about, you can use Street View. You can use Story Spheres, which I touched on just a tad bit. And again, the Rico Theta, if you want to play and get your own VR camera, you can. One that some people mentioned, which I did not play with at all, was something called CoSpaces. I have not touched with CoSpaces, but from what I've been told from the people who I've interviewed, it's a really dynamic platform for creating virtual reality experiences in your classroom. And the link I gave to you guys for this awesome presentation, this was by Jessica Lux, who's out of Connecticut, and she works with the EdTech team. It's basically using creativity with 360 storytelling. So she uses the story spheres as well, and how you can tell those digital stories and make them with virtual reality. So if you really want to dive into that realm of creation, that is an awesome resource to look at there. And then if you're looking for some summer reading this summer and you want to read a little bit more on either Google Cardboard, using VR, AR, and MR in your classroom, or just using more of the Google Geo Tools, these are some fabulous books. The first one, the Google Cardboard book, which is done by Holly Clark, Sylvia Duckworth, Jeffrey Heil, David Hotler, Donnie Piercy, and Lisa Thuman, who I've actually had the pleasure of working with Holly, Jeff, and Donnie. So they are awesome educators, and they've written this book that basically guides you through going from step one of what is cardboard all the way to classroom creation with cardboard. Learning Transported is by Jamie Donnelly, who's an expert in the field of AR and VR and MR. And she goes through in her book and describes all these multiple uses across content areas of how you could use all three in your classroom. So if that's something you want to dabble in, the book literally just came out a month or two ago. And then again, Bring the World into Your Classroom by Kelly Kermode and Kim Randall, again, using the Google Geo Tools. This is going to look at some of the tools we talked about, as well as some other Google Geo tools that I did not touch on. It gives you ideas across content area, grade level, simple, try now, do it yourself. Fabulous book, and highly recommend it if it's something that you want to dabble in to kind of bring a little more culture and geography into your classrooms. So with that, I will open it up to questions for you all. So if there are any questions, and I will stop. Do you guys need me to put up the link again?
Yes.
Yes, okay, let me put the link up before I end my screen share. Do you guys need me to make it full screen or is that good?
That's fine by me.
All right, so I will put that up there, but if you have questions, go ahead and pop them in the chat.
Yep.
And I can view the chat as well.
I think we answered a few questions as you were doing the presentation, but yes, we definitely have time.
And if you want to ask it instead of putting it in the chat, you can unmute yourself and ask the question live as well.
Yep.
Anybody? Feel free. Okay. Okay, yeah, I can put the link up again, not a problem. It should be, do you guys still see my screen? It should be up there. For whoever asked, actually, I can grab it and I'll put it in the chat as well for you. All right, let me put that in the chat. There we go. And actually, I'll stop my share. There we go.
Somebody's
asking, all right.
Okay.
Okay, what would you recommend for an initial purchase?
Yeah.
Are you talking about an initial purchase as in your device or as in the cardboard viewer, the phone to go in the viewer? If whoever you are, if owner, could you specify what you're referring to?
Okay. Well, in the meantime, while we get an answer to that, there was another question that asked, how long would your lesson be for elementary school students?
All right, for an elementary school lesson, like in terms of, or if you're referring to a Google Expedition, I would say, again, you could do a whole expedition with them, but I would give them breaks from the viewer. So you might want to have them maybe see one scene and then take a little brain break where they're off of the viewers, give their eyes a break, and then maybe do another image. Again, not knowing what your kids are like, again, that would vary. So, I mean, judge your kids. I would say I would have them maybe 10, 15 minutes and then give them a break. Because most kids kind of feel a little disoriented with the viewers if they're for instructional purpose. So you set it up with that hook, and then we'll get there the next day, and I'm like, all right, we're going on a trip. And they're like, but we didn't have field trip permission slips. I'm like, you don't need them. We're going to get out, and then I pull out the viewers and I explain how to use them. They get on their device, and we're set to go on a trip. So that's kind of how I present it. I'd say if you use the hook, that works really well.
Thank you. How much class time does a tour usually take?
We're on the 90-minute block, and I can do it in like half the block. Would be the actual tour itself. Depends on, and each tour is actually different. Like most of mine that I've done they have about 6 to 8 places that you go to. And then within that, they each have their little script. And then you have, of course, after we do the expedition, you have your wraparound activities, which then I usually use the remainder of class to do the wraparounds, or that continues for their homework. So again, it depends on how many are in there. And you might decide if you preview them ahead of time, okay, well, I don't want to do site number 2 because it's not interesting, or maybe you feel that it's not appropriate for your students. Again, depending on their level, if you're looking at it from the elementary point of view, some of the images in that one may not be appropriate. Or you might decide, well, we're just going to cover the first site that's on there. And that's the beauty of it, is you can pick and choose. Okay, there's one more question that popped up, Advish.
Go ahead, we'll go for it.
Okay, they asked, do you need earbuds for this? Nope. No need when you're doing the expedition, because you yourself are the guide. If you had them watching YouTube 360 videos that you didn't want everyone else to hear, then yes, you might want some earbuds. But if you're just doing it as a Google expedition, there's no need for the earbuds. If you're doing street view, no need for them. If you did it as a cardboard camera video, yes, you might want them if you didn't want everyone to hear all the sound. Okay. Oh, one more came in. And how many students do I have in my classes, and how often do I use VR activities or VR projects? Again, in my classes it varies, but I do have a classroom set of VR. I have a classroom set of cardboard. I have 25 viewers that I received through a grant, in addition to the other ones that I've collected at various conferences along the way. So probably in total, I have 30-some viewers laying around in my room. Now, my devices, in terms of the students using devices, I rely on the students bringing their own, because I'm going to apply for a grant to try to get funding for the devices. So that will help our scenario so more kids can be on them, because not every kid has them. So I share my phone. I also tell the kids to buddy up sometimes. We don't use them all the time. I would say maybe once a month or less. It depends again on the unit, where we're at. Also depends on what we're studying. So again, it varies. And yes, there is a YouTube 360. Yes. And let's see, anybody else got anything? If you do have other questions, again, don't hesitate. You can email me. You can message me on Twitter. Facebook works too. I mean, literally any social media platform, you guys can find me. This has been an absolute pleasure. This is my third day. Yeah, this is my third day of summer break. So I couldn't think of a better way to spend my break than hanging out with all of you all and sharing my passion. So thanks again, and feel free to email me with any questions, hit me up on Twitter, social media, etc. Merci beaucoup. And you guys have been awesome.